The benefits of using art as a way to learn are manifold. It improves creativity and motor skills while also allowing kids to express themselves freely. During the next session, our panelists will discuss how educators can incorporate art into their lesson plans. Please welcome our panel of experts who will discuss art as a medium of interactive education and learning.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melinda Viteri, and I'm from Washington, D.C. It's a real pleasure to be here to speak with you today, and we've got an exceptional group of panelists this afternoon who are going to talk to you all about how they excite and invigorate arts within education in many, many different ways around the globe. So each panelist, if we'd like to introduce ourselves, that would be wonderful.
Well, my name is Aisha Nasim, and I'm working as a principal in a community school in Dubai. I'm a life coach and I'm NLP therapist as well. So for me, well-being of my students and teachers is so much important as well as the academics of students.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Casanova Green. I'm the Director of First Year Experience, Diversity, and Inclusion and English Department Manager at Hocking College. My title's so long I had to read it. But for me, art, I'm going to just read the quote. Art in all its forms can be the text and the message. Not everything requires an essay or a book. So how I integrate art and the arts in general in my classroom practice is focusing on multimodal instruction and multimodal communication, showing our students that they can convey messages, they can convey research in ways that aren't just write an essay or write a report.
And as I said, I have a nonprofit that I co-founded in 5 years ago called Aviation Youth Mentoring Program. And this has been a really exciting journey. My background is in teaching deaf and blind students, which I did for many years in the UK and held different jobs around that role. I learned to fly an airplane about 15 years ago, and it was a serendipity moment that really opened up a world of, innovation, and I became very interested how we could use the medium of flight to create and extend amazing learning opportunities in STEM, in aviation and aerospace around the globe. So the nonprofit serves 15,000 students a year. We have many, different corporate partners, including NASA, that work with us, and some of these pictures are, our glorious moments. The two young boys you see at the bottom, they were actually part of our Build a Plane program, and over the years, I've had the pleasure of building 18 airplanes in the UK and the USA with various young people, and it's amazing when you get them hooked, how it can really, just open up a world of difference. We serve students that are underserved, and art is a really big formation of how we like to, integrate STEM with arts in particular. Let me tell you, to build an airplane, you've got to be super creative, and building on the arts is, that's a very big part of what we do.
My name is Mark Lang. My name is Mark Lang, he says into the microphone. And I'm a partner with Leadership Masters. For about 30 years, we've been working with nonprofits, corporations, large and small, in leadership development. We use theatrical techniques. I'm also a graphic designer, so I do graphics for the company as well. And we use those leadership theater presentations to inspire and help build the leaders of tomorrow. So we'll be talking more about that as we go along.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Daniel Blanco. I'm a doctor in organic chemistry. Therefore, I do research and I teach subjects in this field. And I'm one of those people who think that teaching is not about transferring information to people or giving people knowledge. I think teaching is about inspiring and motivating future professionals, and the arts actually help me in this direction.
Hello, great to be here, and thank you for having us. I'm Jodi Wert. I work in early childhood education, and I use film, videos, and photos to help preschool teachers both focus the eye and soften the eye. By focus the eye, we really work on amplifying children's ways of knowing and being, and planning curriculum beginning there, beginning with their interests, their main draws, what lights them up, and building from there. And it's amazing how much better reading, numeracy, and all the important skills they need to learn go when it's based in that love of theirs. And for softening the eye, I do a lot of video and photography that of nature and incorporate that into my work with teachers. And just 90 seconds of watching the ocean roll can really help someone center and be ready to move into the next moment with themselves and with a child.
Thank you. So we now have our first question, which is to all panelists. What does creativity mean to you? Should we start?
I guess I'm going first. So creativity to me is the best way I can put it is communication. Um, I've grown up in a very musical household, so we were always singing, always doing stuff that eventually turned into writing songs, writing poetry. But I use that as a form of communicating and really being able to share what was inside of me. And I think for our students, they use it for the same reasons, because it's their way to communicate and navigate with the world, so that way they're able to process and deal and move forward. So it's communication.
Creativity, to me, is everything. It's sort of the lifeblood of humanity. It's I was lucky enough to get into a special uh, educationally advanced public school in New York City, and what made me different was the fact that I was one of the more creative people. So it was always into visual art, and that would start conversations. Then I got into video, and then that was a way that I could direct and write and perform and do graphics. And then I wound up on the stage, and then that was another way of pulling me out of my shell. So I know personally what the arts have done for me, and I know how effective it can be in classroom at any level, from corporate down to elementary school.
To me, creativity is self expression, the ability to express my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions in my own manner. And if I talk about creativity as a leader, so I believe as a leader, creativity is to ensure to meet the needs of all individual. Every student is different and unique. So when we talk about diversity, so this is the duty and responsibility of a leader to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all the students, and our educational plans are inclusive and include diversity as well.
And I second all of those, but creativity is also the willingness and ability to transcend the patterns, relationships, and connections that we know, to explore and co create distinct patterns, relationships, and connections, and really inviting, in particular in my field, young children into that, which requires openness and willingness that isn't always present in the traditional frameworks that we have. So we have to be that creativity allows us to open up the possibilities so that we can find new paths to create with children.
Well, and creativity to me is the use of imagination and original ideas, especially in the production of something new, something that that no one has done before, which in a way can inspire others to follow your path.
I just want to jump in and say a favorite quote from Einstein is, "Creativity is intelligence having fun," which I love that one.
Such a great quote. To me, creativity is really, it's about imagination and dreamers, having a dream. And how do we, make sure that all children have an opportunity to have their dream heard, their imagination, put to good use. That means, they have to have really, really open access to, the basic care needs in a school. And we really try to get the programming in there to be able to work with the students in a creative way possible and it be inclusive. So our second question is to Jodi and Danny. What arts have had the most integrated impact to subjects which might not appear to lend themselves to art, such as perhaps math, science, business studies?
So I'm a studio artist, and so I think in that realm, but I think with this question, my answer is based more on materials. And I think any material that offers a positive sensory experience, especially in the realm of early childhood, but I believe beyond as well, any material that offers a positive sensory experience where there is, a positive input that's landing on the sensory and nervous system in a positive way, that helps children to open up and be able to explore emergent literacy, emergent numeracy, and things that might often bring a little bit of fear or intimidation. But when they have something incorporated like clay, like paint, that they're able to have a positive sensory experience to help them move through, it's amazing the dynamic that pairing can create to create a really positive learning experience. And it's really positive for that moment, but it's also creating a map that helps them to know, hey, I can do this moving forward. And there are a bunch of tools in my toolbox that I can pull on to help me get through this moment. And so that's another piece of the creativity and just being able to approach change and the unknown with confidence.
Well, I cannot give a straight answer, I mean, in the global sense of this, but I can give my own experience. And I teach organic chemistry, and I start all my classes with music. I mean, it sounds funny, but we all know that music decreases anxiety and increases relaxation and boosts mood and memory. So it's a good way to start, well, not only organic chemistry, to start anything, actually. And actually also breaks the ice, and it really creates the atmosphere, or the right atmosphere, for any big event. Actually, as you can see, there is no big event in the world that doesn't start with music, so I follow the same thing. And I use painting and sculpture as a bait for engaging my students into organic chemistry, so then something that they already know, like arts, and then I just use this as a connector with something they don't know, like organic chemistry. And for example, I use a sculpture, like I showed before. I just show like the David of Michelangelo, and then I just make them draw what they would see in case I rotated the sculpture like 90 degrees or 120 degrees. And then I do the same thing with organic molecules to really show them or teach them the three-dimensionality of organic molecules. And they do much better when they see this connection than when there is no connection with, in this case, arts. And also I use painting to really show the application of pharmaceuticals. And then when we are discussing, well, a certain molecule and the synthesis of it, then if I relate it to depression, like the painting that I showed before, they remember much better, actually, not only the application, but also the molecule itself and the synthesis.
Okay. So our next question is to Aisha and Casanova. In your experience, what is the link between creativity in the classroom and mental and emotional well-being?
Well, there are a lot of expectations from students by parents, teachers, and society as they walk through their education system, and it causes a lot of stress and anxiety. And the anxiety and stress increases day by day when they are facing the difficult topic and they are going to the next level. So if we integrate arts, we can solve this issue, because we'll be able to tackle the unique demands of all students. They'll be able to work on all 21st century skills. Like for many years, we have been talking about 21st century skills, and many panelists, they were talking how we can just integrate that. But through art integration, we'll be able to achieve critical thinking, self-awareness, and through this, they'll be more confident, and hence it will reduce their stress and anxiety. So yes, it's related to each other.
The great philosopher Tyler Perry said, writing is cathartic. It's something that's stuck with me, but in all forms of art, there is a cathartic aspect to it. And for my during my high school teaching tenure, and even now teaching and administrating at the college level, I've had to deal with a lot of students who are steeped in hip hop culture. And hip hop culture is not just a style of music; it is lived experience. And so that was their way of releasing that tension of dealing with the stuff they were dealing with. And when I began to allow them to use that as a way to frame what we were learning in English classes, and even now with my push at Hocking to do multimodal instruction, allowing them the ability to use what they have, the creativity that they have, it lifts the burden of, I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to convey this message. So for mental health, it gives them the opportunity to be successful, to communicate in a realm that they know and that they understand very well. But also as Aisha said, very, very profoundly, that it gives them an opportunity to deal in the process and to work through the mental health things that they're going through, for them to feel better about themselves, feel more confident about themselves as well as their academics.
Absolutely, and mental health and well-being being an integral part of all our programs and classroom is definitely a big part of what we do now, and looking towards the future. Okay. So we have what are the challenges and opportunities of connecting through virtual education with arts rather than in-person learning? And this is for Daniel.
Okay. Yeah, actually, many years ago, actually something like 20, 25 years ago, so long before the pandemic, I already had the idea that the future of teaching would be online teaching, and that we would save like millions in buildings and transportation. But then during the pandemic, I realized that I was wrong, because I could kind of like give the same way of teaching except for building rapport. So that is something that, well, open to suggestions, but that is something that I think is quite difficult, that is a challenge. And without rapport between teachers and students, then we miss something. Actually, I mean, research is clear that when there are meaningful connections between teachers and students, then this boosts the students' engagement and even grades. So that is something that I still find it a challenge. So that in a way, I guess that we will go for something a hybrid mode, maybe 50-50, 40-60, who knows. So that is a big challenge that I still see that, well, I might be wrong, but this is what I think. And well, about opportunities, I think with online teaching, we have the possibility of using like the latest technology to make it as attractive as possible. So, for example, in my case again, then I could just divide all the contents of my lectures in short videos. Actually, now all the students they're well focused and obsessed just watching short videos like TikTok. And so that's what I did. I provided all my lectures in short videos, recorded with kind of like the latest technology, which is the light board videos. You can Google it now. If you just Google light board videos, you will see what this is, which is a glass blade, a glass board, actually, that you are just drawing with all the colors that you want, and then you have the camera on the other side of the glass, so then you can just look straight to the camera as if you were looking in the eye to the student. At the same time, you're not blocking what you're drawing, so then they can really follow everything. So then this is what I found.
Okay. And just thinking back to, I'll never personally forget the day I was sent home from school, and we just got the news that the school would be closing for the pandemic, and we were sent home originally for 3 weeks. So we're like, oh, 3 weeks, that'll be okay. We can get on Zoom and teach some classes, and of course that ended up being well over 12 months that we were teaching virtually aviation and aerospace for like, as I say, over 12 months. And it kind of forced society in general to improve the technology skills overnight, because, whether you wanted to be painting virtually with your grandchildren or connecting with people at the other side of the world. It presented new opportunities in technology.
There's something to be said for the reach. I mean, in Leadership Masters, we'd been using Zoom for years beforehand because we had partners all over the country. So it was a very valuable tool. And whether there's Zoom exhaustion at this point or not, I think the fact that you can make that connection on a screen, which is very sort of native to young people. I do agree with Danny. However, there's nothing like being in the room, with real people, as it would be on a stage in the theater.
Well, and I would just say, oh, you go ahead. I'm glad we brought this up because in some ways it was an entry point that might have been a closed door otherwise. In early childhood, schools were closing or caregivers were having to open up their classrooms to take care of elementary age children, siblings who didn't have a place to go because their parents worked full time. And so in that moment, early childhood programs were saying, look, we're going to have to push pause on all professional development. Everyone is worn out. And that online helped us to say, like, what can we do a little bit differently? We've never done this before. Yes, we're going to have to learn how Zoom works, but let's keep going. Let's not pause. And it helped us to come up with some of the most innovative ideas. And we have woven those back in as we've continued to return in person. And so that has been a major plus.
Look, I am so glad I took an online teaching training before the pandemic hit. It was like literally right before it happened. Because it allowed me to have fun. I got to create, I got to like teach. Teaching by video, I tried the whole stage on the stage by video for 2 weeks. I was like, I can't do this. So it forced me to be creative. It forced me to really think outside of the box. I already think outside of the box enough as it is. So, and even I keep those practices now with the work that I'm doing. I record my classes. I record them, like keep a record. Oh, you missed class today? Just watch this. Like catch the lecture, or I try to hit just the parts that they need, because it keeps everybody on track, but also keeps everybody connected. Because we all know that we can't go back to how things were. I think that's been the theme of today. We can't go back to how things were. So I think there's a lot of open doors for us in the area of technology.
Absolutely. Technology is certainly going to be a piece that drives the arts and education integration forward. In terms of we were like, oh, what do we do? How do you teach aviation when you don't have planes and things to do? And we actually started out with an aviation art contest, and we ended up with a lot of entrants from all around the globe, and that was kind of like the lead-in and how we got more into the arts. And those programs have continued, and we build and grow and share and continue learning together. So our next question is for Jodi and Casanova. How might the content and anticipated outcomes of education shift if creative endeavor and expression were more central to the education processes?
Thank you, Casanova. Well, I think if creative endeavor and expression were more central to educational processes, we might have a real chance at enterprise-wide change and the kind of transformation that transforms culture, transforms the way we see the capacity of children, the way that we see ourselves as partners to children. Through that, we would be able to really navigate the unknown in a way that we haven't before. And I would love to share this quote by poet and essayist Joseph Brodsky. When seen from the outside, creativity is the object of fascination or envy. But seen from the inside, it is a constant exercise in uncertainty. And I think the arts and creativity is much more than creating with our hands, or a lot of people have this belief or barrier that they aren't fit for the studio, but it's bigger than that. Creativity helps us to face uncertainty with a confidence that we can turn to each other like in a giant improv and say, we got this. Right now we know this point, and we're going to explore the next point. And from there, we're going to go to the next point. And so it's just being able to explore the unknown, both in collaboration and with confidence.
So let's look at this from a DEI standpoint. Pretty much, it creates balance. It levels the playing field. With how we teach English, how I've been instructing all of my adjuncts and my full-time team on how to teach English, is we're not looking at if the student can write like a 5-paragraph essay. What we're looking at is what is the message and how do they do it. And I tell my students this the first day, and they about have a heart attack, and then they realize I'm dead serious. If essays are not your strength, please don't write one. I got one person to laugh. And they're like, what? I'm saying, okay, it's like, honestly, I work at a 2-year school. Who plans on going to a 4-year school after this? Kid, it's like 5 or 6 of y'all. All right, I'll work with you on the essays. But for everybody else, if essays are not your strength, don't write one because you won't write it in the real world. But you'll create you'll create TikToks, you'll create Instagrams, you'll create a website. Some of y'all want to be in music, okay, create a track, do a video project. You still have to problem solve. You still have to research. You still have to do all the things that an essay is asking you to do. But what I'm asking you to do is do it in the language that you speak, not not to please me. Do it. You have full permission to be as creative as you want to be, as long as you can justify it rhetorically. What if we looked at education from that standpoint of as long as you can get the message across and fulfill the skills? Remember, we talked about skills-based learning. If we can fulfill the skills and what's being asked of you, we're good. Plain and simple.
I would like to add into this. If art has been integrated into educational process, trust me, the content must be very interesting and captivating. The one thing which we have to do, we have to induce the genuine excitement for students to learn. And when we are talking about the anticipated results, so there is a 4-year study in late 1990 which shows a very strong relation between the results and art integration. So it's how you integrate arts and involve all students and engage the way they want.
I'm sorry, I gotta say one more thing on this. um, Piggybacking on what Aisha said, and that requires adults to have some comfort with exploring, building these skills, getting dirty, getting messy, whatever it might mean. But so many times I think that creative process gets cut short for children because adults are afraid of it. And then we can draw that back to somebody's had an experience where they didn't think they could do it, they didn't think they were good enough for it, and they got kind of shied away from it. And then that directly affects what's going to happen in that classroom because the teacher is setting the tone and is directly affecting the openness. And so it's not a throwing shade on teachers. It's just one of those empathetic moments to say, hey, there's a reason for this, but we can all push pause, be reflective, and say, you know what, how can I get in there and develop these skills and develop the willingness and openness to be creative, because I'm the captain of this ship in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I tell myself that every day. How can I wake up and learn something from kids and open myself to be in this creative unknown?
And in dealing with creativity, you have to move from being the dictator to the facilitator. Sometimes you don't know what they're doing or how they're doing it, and that is perfectly fine. Just be like, okay, as long as you don't get me fired, we're good. One thing, because I've had to learn this, because I've done a lot in terms of creativity, but there's some things I look at my students going, okay, if you think you can pull it off, by all means, and then they pull it off, and it's amazing, because it's not my job to control the outcome. It's my job to make it so the outcome can happen.
Yes, indeed. All the skills and being a facilitator, and that's hard for educators. It's like many of us have stood at front of a room, and to switch to be a facilitator, especially in arts education, and is an interesting point. And so we're curious how arts can actually be used to engage students if they've got no really experience in the arts. How can we bring them in as brand new engagement into the arts? This question's for Mark.
Because we work primarily with adults in corporate setting, a lot of training and leadership training is lecture, PowerPoint slide, lecture, PowerPoint slide, and we decide that's not how we want to do it, because that's not how we do it. We use the theater, we engage intellectually, and our goal is also to engage emotionally, to really touch people's hearts and souls as well as their minds, interactive as much as possible. For those of you who are here tomorrow, we're going to do a sample of one of our leadership programs tomorrow morning at 9:50. It's called the Shackleton Experience. It's about a polar explorer in 1915, and we'll do a little piece of it so you can get a sense of how our process works and how that process might work in your situation as well. And it includes music, as Danny said, it includes visuals. We have slides from the expedition so that it's hopefully an immersive situation for the participants as well. And it's set up as a press conference, so everybody in the room theoretically is there to ask Cernus questions, and we've been doing it for many years, and we think it's pretty powerful.
And our final question is, how can we all promote arts in education on an inclusive and global scale?
Well, I think it's quite challenging. I think this is something that every teacher should do it individually, so then we can implement this. If we think that this is the right direction, and once we have done this, then we can show others the benefits of it. So then maybe it can become contagious, and then it can become like a chain reaction, and then in the end, then the entire teaching community can just include arts in teaching, in education.
As an early childhood educator, I tend to think of the moment-to-moment possibilities because that's how time rolls with young children, moment to moment. But I think choosing creativity or those creative endeavors in a moment to moment, even if it's one thing, what am I going to do today? When I work with when I coach preschool teachers, I try to give them practical skills that they can use on Monday, and so just choosing that one thing, being reflective about it together as a team, and then saying, hey, how can we build on that? And just keeping it simple and realistic and attainable, because our profession, people are spread pretty thin sometimes. And so just keeping it in a way attainable so that we can be energized by it and not spread thin by it. And then that just creates this beautiful cycle of internal professional development where, yes, it's wonderful to have someone come from the outside to highlight and to make things interesting and inspire us, but really day to day and week to week we're doing our own professional development within, and that's where our real strength comes, and we get to start to really build our own culture and tell our own story, and it's relevant to everyone in our context, and that's incredibly powerful on all levels.
When we are talking about art integration first, it's very important. What is the objective of doing that? Because we want to develop the skills. Unfortunately, in all the schools, in all the system in different countries, there is a lot of focus on standardized tests, a lot of focus, and the teacher focus is to prepare students for the test, and somehow the skills are missed. Since morning, I have attended many sessions, and they all were actually talking about skills. I have heard the artificial intelligence, how they have to work on the individualized, how they are providing individualized support to the students to improve. Then I have heard the inclusion session. They are talking about meeting the needs of all the students. And if we are sitting here and talking about art integration, so why we want this art integration? Because we want to develop the skills. And if we have to do the art integration, so we have to take it from the smaller level. Not all art integration requires a lot of resources. Like recently, in one of the class, the students were unable to learn angles and abstract and all that. And I had a very good arts teacher, so I said, why don't you just teach them, pick some of the artists who are doing the abstract painting, and through that you will be able to just explain this concept. And he did it, and it was quite good. Even in the English, you can just take the students for the theater and the open forums and all that. So for all arts, you don't require all the resources. It's how smartly you play, and just have this focus in front of your teachers as well, that how you're going to work on the skills, how you're going to focus on the process more than the outcome. Yes, outcome is important, but you have to focus on the starting point of the students, and then by uh, that's how you'll be able to develop the skills of the students.
I would say celebrate your successes. Get the word out. Use social media in the best possible way. And, small things can become big things. And hopefully all of you here have ideas that you want to share from our panel, from other panels, from the conference in general. Get the word out. Get the word out.
All right, I'm gonna sound real technical for a second. I'm gonna try to do it quick because time is running short. Teaching for transfer. If you've never heard of that concept, please look at. See, she's like, yeah, we here. So teaching for transfer, pretty much, it ends the siloing of education because everything connects. It makes room for failure because of negative transfer. They try it and they see something, they try it in the same context that they did it before, they bump their head, they learn something new. And how that can integrate, how arts can fit into that is that you're making connections to something they already do. So it's not so the biggest issue is that our students across the world have been taught to silo information and nothing interconnects. And that this is not going to be usable. This is not I won't need this after I graduate from school. You'll need it. Showing them how the knowledge transfers helps them learn, helps them make those connections, but even helps their neuroplasticity. So that way they're able to retain the skills to be able to use them in different contexts.
Yeah, it's just it's great to be able to collaborate and connect to to think about how we can move this forward. I was just gonna I'm thinking about one of my students that applied for a scholarship, and it's called the Flying Musical Scholarship. So to be able to be eligible, you had to play an instrument in the school band, and if you played an instrument and you got a good reference from your band instructor, you could go learn to fly and get your pilot's license. So I'm just like, there's.
Not at the same time.
You could try. It'd be kind of cool, right? That'd be like really multitasking. The point about teaching students to fail as well. I think that's something that's really to create robust, well-rounded students that are ready, to engage in workforce development. It's at the heart of really the arts integration piece that's in all of our work. So we'd like to open it up for questions now.
Yeah, like 1 second.
We'll have one question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, we've got one question. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Kapush. I work at Columbia Business School, and I'm a digital marketing strategist. And it's an amazing topic, right? Interactive education and learning, and how we can use the art in it. And at the Columbia Business School, we have a class called Jazz in Leadership. And what it does is that we can learn leadership from jazz playing. And my question is, what students can learn from other industries and different perspectives in order to better understand how their art can be applied at learning?
I was ready when you said jazz. Here's the thing about jazz. Jazz requires trust. Jazz requires communication because half the time they didn't practice. Trust me, I know. So it's a lot of improvisation. It's a lot of you have to trust the people that you're with to make sure that nothing falls flat, and in that you give everybody an opportunity to shine. So we have those same parallels in in other forms of art. I mean, with poetry, we get that poetry can focus on conciseness of ideas, because you can't have nobody's gonna read an 80-page poem. You got about 80 words. So if that focuses on conciseness, even with art, understanding angles is another thing that we can do. Isn't that like understanding, like talk about angles, understanding angles. Somebody talk about how the Pythagorean theorem was in bridge design. So there's all those connections can be made. We just have to know how to make them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, and we will be moving on.